Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
This podcast is supported by FX's English Teacher. Last year's critically acclaimed series returns to follow Evan, Gwen, and Marky as they vie for their students' divided attention. See why Cosmopolitan called its premiere season a masterclass of comedy, while Glamour raved it's the year's funniest and most heartwarming new comedy series. FX's English Teacher. All new Thursdays on FX. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Tom, what is the best form for a tomato?
I'm going to go with a blistered tomato with a little bit of char on the outside. Sun-dried tomato, I used to be a fan of that, but I think that was a very early 2000s thing.
Oh, I think it's more like mid-80s, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going with a blistered tomato, Kevin.
No, the answer is a red sauce with clams. This is Pack Your Knives. I'm Kevin Arnovitz.
And I'm Tom Haberstroh.
Tom, it's Restaurant Wars. It's Restaurant Wars. When you're down to 8, you know it's Restaurant Wars. This is a really interesting departure for this show, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about it. Dare I say it was a little bit of a tame Restaurant Wars, and I want to get your general thoughts. From the picking of teams to service to everything else. It was not a Restaurant Wars that for me had the typical freneticism or the war of attrition or chaos management. I even missed kind of the pleasant but incompetent waitstaff that came to the chefs from a local temp agency and therefore had no capacity to perform. But it was Restaurant Wars, for better or for worse. Well, Tom, I'll put the question to you, for better or for worse?
Kevin, you're wrong. This was not Restaurant Wars. This didn't have the elements of Restaurant Wars that we love, that we've come to love over the years. The chaos, the formation of a concept and executing the decoration, the staff, the front of house, all of that was gone. This, to me, was not Restaurant Wars. It was an elimination challenge that they smashed together with a very lovely Claire Smith and her restaurant. It felt like, to me, I don't know, maybe we'll find out later that this was not their plan A in terms of Restaurant Wars, and they had to kind of adapt due to some sort of conditions or some sort of cancellation. I don't know. This, to me, Kevin, felt like a standard elimination challenge where they had to come up with a menu. That's what it felt like to me. All the things that we adore about Restaurant Wars went by the wayside. And while, yes, technically this was the 4-on-4 Restaurant Wars, it felt very, I I don't know, dry to me. There just wasn't that sort. We didn't even know who was executive chef and front of house or the sous chefs. All the things we talked about last week that was so invigorating and exciting about Restaurant Wars, we didn't have any of that. And I felt like this season has been, Greg Maddux on the mound, just incredibly efficient, just no mistakes. It seemed like this season Top Chef was just a flawless in terms of execution and concept ideas, quick fire. This was the rare Greg Maddux walk. It wasn't an 0-4, no strike walk, but it just felt like to me a little bit of a miss.
Yeah, I mean, if you cut out just a very generic discussion among both teams about, hey, what's our theme? And the one scene where Sarah is essentially briefing the staff on sort of the origin of the idea and the various features of the restaurant. This was I would have not known this was Restaurant Wars. This was, as you say, this was a generic elimination challenge split into 2 teams. Each team will design a 4-course menu, or a 5-course as it is. Each chef will essentially be accountable for their particular dish. Nominally, Amar is working the pass. Nominally, Sarah's communicating with the front of the house. Nominally, Buddha is executive chef, which frankly kind of happens organically on a lot of these team challenges anyway.
Exactly.
You don't need to inject Restaurant Wars into an elimination team challenge to get that. But there was here's all the things I really missed. I missed that contemplation over the idea, the executive chef sitting with their notebook the night before and saying, what do we do? I even frankly missed the sort of going shopping for decor and really giving the restaurant your own handprint stylistically in terms of vibe. You kind of Kevin Gillespie's sort of southern, was it that southern seafood, right? Like it lacked so many of the distinguishing characteristics of Restaurant Wars. And frankly, as much as I love Clara Smith, and by the way, I haven't been to Core. It is right on Kensington Park Road, a few blocks down from one of my favorite little cookbook stores called Books for Cooks in Notting Hill. But it basically is no different than they do that all the time. I mean, how often does Top Chef proceed and say, you will be cooking your challenge in the restaurant of so-and-so?
That's right.
That's not new. That's not a new thing. The fishbowl, I don't even think they really even maximized the fishbowl. I actually loved, Tom going back to check on the jus was really one of the only dramatic moments of the episode. But I just thought this was kind of a bloodless episode. It really, we look forward to Restaurant Wars is the best thing. You and I have had conversations like there should just be a spinoff of Top Chef called Restaurant Wars, where you invite 2 teams of 4 chefs and have them just do it. Like, I would watch that every week. This felt like a generic, as you said, you put it perfectly. This was a generic league average elimination challenge. 2 teams put together a progressive dinner, and there's a loose theme, but there's no tension. There wasn't a hell of a lot of conflict other than Tom quite predictably, forgetting Gabri's cauliflower, poor guy.
Yes.
But, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And in fact, the irony is the only drama that came of this episode came of things that weren't terribly related to Restaurant Wars, unless you consider that to be a feature where, hey, some chefs are shopping for other chefs' food. Right. But we see that on other episodes too. But I was just kind of disappointed. I wasn't bored. I wasn't unhappy. It was it lacked the sort of peak. I think one of the great peaks, Top Chef has a lot of peaks over the course of a season, right? The opening, a double elimination challenge, Restaurant Wars, the penultimate episode before the finale, and before you go away to the to the finale location, right? And Restaurant Wars has always been the biggest peak. It wasn't this time.
And I would also add, one of the reasons why I was so excited about this Restaurant Wars, Kevin, was to see these amazing chefs who have Michelin stars, who have their own restaurants. How do they figure out the pecking order? How do they build out their starting rotation? And I was so curious to see if Ali and Buddha were on the same team, who is going to pick up executive chef, who is going to be front of house. Sarah's going to be front of house, and Amar. That team, like, to me, I would have loved to have seen kind of the different dynamics at play of who's going to fill what position. And we lost that. And I think having such high quality chefs and then asking them who's going to take a backup role and be the sous chef and seeing the different kind of power dynamics at play, we didn't get any of that. And so it's one thing to do this in a season prior where you have it's not an all-star season, but to me, I felt a lot of excitement to see that dynamic of the different roles and delegating the roles and seeing who would decide to basically take, come off the bench. And we didn't get much of that. And I actually thought, Kevin, our analysis last week was spot on. We saw Tom taking an executive chef role and the planning role. We saw Buddha taking that role, and both of those were the leaders of the team. So I found that it was very pressing. What we talked about last week did actually play out here, but it didn't the tension, the conflict, the even having the managers there. It just felt like, I don't know.
Well, that was sort of the thing is, oh, wow, we're endowing these teams with some of the most professional front of the house. I was like, well, that's not, if I can go to a restaurant and get that. I mean, the fun of Restaurant Wars is not to watch a hyper competent professional maitre d'. The appeal of Restaurant Wars is watching an egomaniacal chef be placed in the front of the house by a process of elimination or doing it grudgingly, or for that matter, we're getting to see. I mean, one of the things I love about when a really good chef is at the front of the house is their great character. You see the charm. I mean, we've seen so many chefs shine in that role, and it makes them really likable. Like, I'm not, with all due respect to Claire Smith's, manager, who if I'm opening a restaurant, I would hire, but I'm not tuning in for him, right? Like it's not a show about him. And so how much fun would it have been to see Sarah not just briefing the staff, but actually interacting with guests? Like, that's what I want to see. Sarah is hilarious. She is charming. And if she's going to be at the front of the house, what I want to see is Sarah in that capacity for 1 week, while all the while trying to juggle her dish in the back of the kitchen, right? Yeah. Like, there's always that tension with the front of the house chefs, and it actually creates conflict often because they have to trust their dish to another chef who might be less vested. All the inherent conflicts of Restaurant Wars were sort of missing. But why don't we just go through? Let's go through the episode, because they still got to pick teams, which is, I know, a Tom Haberstroh special. Nobody loves evaluating the draft more than Tom Haberstroh. Tell me, give me your analysis of Team Roots, Team UK, Victoire's surprise first round pick, how the teams were assembled. I'm curious to hear kind of how you thought it shook out.
Yeah, again, we've analyzed this in the past. We've done the research and found that the team that picks first often backfires, like we did last week, and it did here, where you saw Victoire get the first pick and goes with Tom, which was an interesting one. We saw later in this episode how close Victoire is to Nicole and some of the other contestants, and she made the decision to skip Ali or Amar or Sarah or Gabri, who are on the board, and decide to go with Tom. Now, that is an interesting pick, because I think it is smart in the sense that he is a leader, an executive chef mold. She might be saying, okay, do I trust Ali in that role? Do I trust Amar? Like, she was probably looking at that as who is the most executive chefy person on the board. And maybe, I don't know, this is kind of a little bit of game theory here, but if I have Tom on my team, it's probably going to be him going home. If he's going to be the executive chef, the risk of me going home, if I'm going to be the sous chef, probably I'm not losing any sleep over that. So the interesting pick for me was Tom first. Right. I probably would have gone with Ali there. And then Buddha selects Ali, which was interesting because it seems like two alphas there. Buddha
I don't think of Ali as an alpha. I think I think even though he is killing it, we've seen him be differential. throughout the course of the season. He is a play well with others guy. I mean, he's also young, and I think he might not even realize how good he is.
And I think,
right, like,
I think what Buddha did was an excellent draft from the standpoint of he got Amar and Ali together, who chemistry off the charts. Amar is, I'm trying to think of the NBA equivalent of just the locker room guy that everyone loves and just makes I don't know. Iguodala is a little bit more thorny than Amar. He's not as bubbly of a personality, but the guy who just is the amplifier. Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors.
I think he's kind of, even though he's probably less introverted than Klay Thompson, I think he's very Klay Thompson-y.
Yes, very positive, rosy outlook on everything, and just a machine. That's a great one. Klay Thompson's great.
What's interesting about Tom is he actually cooked the best dish of the day. At least that would seem to be the perception. I mean, we'll rank the dishes as we kind of saw the judges saw them. Did you agree with me that Buddha did a pretty stellar job of drafting here? Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I would guess, I could be completely wrong. I think if you gave Buddha the first three choices without Victoire picking it all, he might have just gone with Amar, Ali, and Sarah.
That's interesting.
Sarah's a good Top Chef, a good Restaurant Wars pick. Right. She has front of the house experience. She runs her own restaurants. She is malleable and will kind of play along. Hey, you guys are doing redefined British food. I don't know how. Oh, why don't you do Cullen skink? I don't know what it is, but I'll do it. And she did it. And I think it was also, I mean, I had as the top two dishes, the Cullen skink and Tom's leek confit.
Yep.
Like, to me, at least, it seemed like that's where the judges slotted them over the course of the day, with maybe the deconstructed English breakfast, though. We'll go through the dishes later. I don't want to step on this, but I do think, I thought it was a really, and why did Victoire say she picked Tom? Because he does vegetable wells, and he did. So, I mean, to some extent, the problem is not that Victoire didn't value Tom. She valued him for the right reasons, and he delivered, right? She said, I want somebody who knows how to work with vegetables really well, and guess what? He turned out the best dish of the night on a non-protein veg dish. So she was correct. I think it was a question of, did she prioritize the wrong things? And then again, though, if you look at the team, I mean, again, it goes back to your original monologue, which is, the bottom line is it really doesn't matter, because you're not creating a restaurant. You're creating a 4-course meal, and you didn't need an executive chef. I mean, theoretically you did. I mean, I do think that Buddha's vision clearly empowered them to win. He had an easy concept, which is, we're doing English menu, but our diverse takes on these decidedly sort of tried and true British dishes.
Listener, listen up. This is important, okay? I'm going to try to save you some money here. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. You may think like, oh, that's bad. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Here's why I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for $15 a month. You heard that correctly. $15 per month. Ditch overpriced wireless and the jaw-dropping monthly bills. And of course, there are all these hidden fees and stuff, but at Mint Mobile, plans start at $15 per month. All the plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text. You're not doing like weekend and nighttime minutes or anything like that. And it's delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone. Don't have to get a new phone. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. I switched months ago. People have asked, did you actually switch? Yes, I actually switched months ago, and I don't know what to do with all this extra money. I've cheated the system here. I've rigged something. This is an Ocean's 11 situation where I'm stealing wireless from Mint. That's how good a deal it is. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/dings. That's DINGS. That's mintmobile.com/dings. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Hello, listener. It's Producer Maze here to talk to you about Quince and their cookware. Cooler nights mean cozy meals at home, and Quince's cookware has made fall cooking so much more enjoyable. Their pieces deliver the quality and performance of luxury brands, but at a price that makes sense. And they look gorgeous on the stovetop, too. No matter what item you need to complete your kitchen, Quince has you covered with 5-ply stainless steel pots and pans, nonstick skillets, chef-quality knives, and even ceramic bakeware, which is perfect for cozy casseroles or Sunday roasts. And when you look at these prices, you might think, how is Quince doing this? How do they deliver high-quality items similar to high-end brands that are half the price? Well, let me tell you, they partner directly with ethical top-tier factories to cut out the middlemen and pass the savings on to you. And it's not just cookware. I got myself some bath sheets. That's right. When you're a tall man, you have to use bath sheets, not bath towels from Quince. It's like drying off with a cloud. It's incredible. Upgrade your kitchen for cozy fall meals with premium cookware from Quince. Go to quince.com/dings for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dings, DINGS, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dings. Hello, listener. It's producer Maze here to talk to you about Kindred. Now, close your eyes like Owen Wilson during a job interview and imagine a way to travel that feels personal, comfortable, and connected without the price tags and the sterile feelings of hotels or short-term rentals. Now open your eyes and stop using your imagination because Kindred has made it very real. That's exactly what they do. Kindred is a members-only home swapping network. It's not a hotel. It's not a short-term rental. It's a smarter way to travel where each stay feels like home. Here's how it works. With Kindred, your home is your ticket. You earn credits by hosting fellow Kindred members, and then you use those credits to stay in over 220,000 homes in more than 100 cities worldwide. There are no hotel costs or rental fees, just the credits that you've earned. Every stay comes with white glove service, 24/7 trip support, and $100,000 in host protection. Make it easier for you to travel and enjoy yourself and not worry about details. I've used Kindred and I found an amazing home for a weekend getaway in an idyllic location with amazing views and great ambiance. It had everything I needed. And the best part was, it cost me $0. So apply now at livekindred.com and use code DINGS to join for free. Plus, you'll earn 5 nights of travel credit just for signing up. That's right, that's 5 whole nights for free at livekindred, KINDRED.com, code DINGS, DINGS, livekindred.com, code DINGS.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' new film, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Golden Globe winner Jeremy Allen White and Academy Award nominee Jeremy Strong. Scott Cooper, the director of the Academy Award-winning movie Crazy Heart, brings you the story of the most pivotal chapter in the life of an icon. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Only in theaters October 24th. Get your tickets now.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Now, my question is, Kevin, okay, so you're running this Top Chef. You're one of the producers, and we have Claire Smith's restaurant. Why can't we have someone front of house? Why can't we have executive chef? Because there was a decision there of, hey, we're going to do away with the roles. We're going to do away with that. We don't have to fill in those blank spaces with, you're the executive chef, you're the front of house. Because when you get Tom with the first pick, Victoire is knowing, because we already figured this out in the kind of like the prelude to this episode, that Victoire and Tom actually had no Restaurant Wars experience. And
Right.
So the idea of he's my first pick, I guess if there's no executive chef or no front of house role, then who cares, right?
I mean, again, and not to harp too much, this wasn't Restaurant Wars.
Yeah, I know.
This was
But
Restaurant Wars.
Why couldn't they have done
use
the
a
front of
restaurant
house?
kitchen, and you are furnished with restaurant personnel to cook a 4-course meal, which we see in team challenges all the time. There was really nothing exceptional about this. it wasn't Restaurant Wars.
All right. Well,
other than the fact that it was in a restaurant and it was a tasting menu, but they do that. You can do that anytime, right?
Humor me for a second.
Right.
I think we know United Kitchen, the roles, right? Buddha, executive, Sarah, front of house.
Right. Amar working the pass, sort of as that's often a sort of unofficial position in Restaurant Wars, sort of the and Ali is kind of the workhorse doing the main, right? Like there were, as you said, the UK did function as a loosely traditional Restaurant War team in that respect. You're absolutely right.
What about Root?
No, they was 4 people doing 4 dishes.
What
and,
if you could designate
Tom
a role?
Theoretically going to go out and did this very quick briefing of, hey, waiters, we will do it this way. Like it wasn't. They didn't do it. And maybe that was the problem. I mean, the counter argument to what you and I just said is, no, actually, the problem was not that this wasn't Restaurant Wars. The problem is that Roots didn't treat it like Restaurant Wars and UK did.
Did you? All right, you're the coach. You have your roster of Victoire, Tom, Nicole, and Gabri. Who's front of house? Who's executive chef?
I mean, I'd probably make Nicole executive chef and get her off the stupid tortellini and just have her, because I think she's a capable executive chef.
In retrospect, the tortellini was a poor decision, but you don't know that when you're the coach, right?
Right.
You've got the personnel. I go, Tom is executive chef, and I have Gabri as the front of house. And I don't know if he's all the way organized enough to be front of house, because you do have to have all your ducks in order to be front of house. So that would be a risky pick from that standpoint. But in terms of skill set, I think he's the pick for me at front of house.
I don't think he inspires people. I don't think Tom inspires people. And I think as an executive chef, you have to inspire people. I don't think Tom inspires people. Like I'm not going to put him on the couch, but I think he's a little narcissistic. I think the fact that he forgot to get or left behind. I mean, would Tom leave behind his own?
Let's go through the episode here.
All right, so let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that. So they split up. They go shopping, right? There's a produce shop that they go to for primarily the produce. There's a Whole Foods, and there are the various other kind of fish markets for specialty items or specifically seafood items or whatever, right?
Right.
And so Tom and Victoire, the teams each split up amongst themselves, right? Tom and Victoire go do the produce, while Nicole and Gabri go do the protein shopping, right? And they are furnished with grocery lists. Tom and Victoire are told by Gabri, I need cauliflower. And in the process of buying, really, one of the only it was basically the produce consisted of Tom's items, leeks, chestnuts, black garlic, etc. Because Victoire, I think, is doing tiramisu. I think there's some bananas there. But by and large, Nicole's is pretty much a produce-less dish. So it's basically Gabri's cauliflower. They leave the freaking basket of cauliflower without paying for it. They just leave it. And I'm sorry, like, it's careless, and you can't tell me. And I admire Tom as a chef. I'm pulling for him. But the guy's a narcissist. And I think an expression of that is you had one job, dude. Like, your job was to get the veg for the guy doing your nominal main dish, and you left it. You didn't buy it. And I just think that it's kind of unforgivable, to be perfectly honest.
Man,
it's really unforgivable.
If he had gone home, if Gabri had gone home, and he was, I think, in jeopardy of going home. I thought yes. Nicole was going to go home, and she did go home. But I think Gabri, if he had gone home, I think we would have started a protest. I think I would have been so furious at the notion that Gabri in a Restaurant Wars had no cauliflower and had to do an onion puree out of thin air because of Tom's mistake. Yeah. And maybe that gets adjudicated at the judge's table, where they're just sitting there and be like, wait, what? You didn't have, what happened? What happened with the cauliflower? And then they hash it out, right? Maybe Tom goes home because of that, but his first dish was outstanding. And so that one was a heartbreaker for me.
Right.
And Magical Elves did a very good job of teasing that when I think it was Sarah or Amar saw, hey, that basket right there, that's not ours. Someone left a basket, and it came back to haunt them, not in a fatal mistake, but I think Gabri is lucky.
He made onion aid out of onions, right? Like he had to kind of just, but I would challenge you this, Tom. Can you name one instance in the 9 episodes we've seen thus far this season where Tom has acted as sort of a team guy? Other than I'll do the cake because nobody wants to do the cake. And by the way, I'll do it crappy. Because I'm
off the top. I mean,
I'll phone it in. I'm not going to help. Right.
What he did though was he went to the other room and decided, you guys have the entire kitchen. I'm just going to go up here in the bathroom and prepare my cake. So there's some self-awareness there that, okay, I have immunity. I'm gone. Forget I even exist. That's fine. But I hear what you're saying. And I think if Nicole decided to go in a different direction, not do tortellini, and Amar even said it, you're a gangster. Nicole, you're a gangster, which is a passive-aggressive way to say you're a moron.
You're out of your freaking mind, is
you're
what she's
a gangster,
saying.
man. I would never do tortellini on Top Chef. And it was what her downfall was the tortellini. It didn't stick. She had to redo the whole dish. It backed up everything. And not only that, Kevin, it wasn't an outstanding dish in terms of, even if you executed the tortellini, it was kind of meh. Claire Smith, was very cold on that dish and felt like there wasn't any punch. It didn't feel modern. It didn't pop. And I thought that, it's one thing to come up with a tortellini in Restaurant Wars with a very loose connection to the story of Root. Like she blended French and Italian cuisine. It just seemed like, I don't know, one of those things where you kind of retrofit your dish to match the story or the narrative. And I think, Nicole, I felt for her because when we saw Victoire and Nicole sit on the couch at the end, you could kind of see that Victoire knew that Nicole was going, or at least one of them was going home. And that's why it was so emotional, because I think they knew that the tortellini was a bad choice. The dish was fine. But if you're going to make a pasta in Restaurant Wars with the kind of, the fact that they slowed down the plating and seating and the pace, it has to be a knockout dish. And it simply was like it seemed like a B- dish.
Yeah, it wasn't terribly creative. I mean, the one thing we don't have full knowledge of, and I'd love to ask, somebody who does understand kind of systems of reservations, is I was a little incredulous with Nicole's claim that their decision to stagger and come in with 8 diners in the first and kind of stagger them was, she seemed to try to use that as a pretext for the underperformance. And one of the things she said was, we needed to, we should have cleared some diners out. Well, okay. But in the alternate scenario, let's say you did 15, 15, 15, and 15. You still have to get 15 pastas out to get to the second stage. Like, I'm incredulous that the problem was Tom's reservation system, as hard as I am on Tom.
Yeah.
And not just the fact that the pasta wasn't very good. It wasn't very inventive. And third, it needed, she could only do it 6 at a time. Because even had you gone with a more traditional, 4 quadrants of, 4 services of 15 or whatever, you still had to get those first 15 out.
To me, that was all survivor mode. That was all survival mode. That was her knowing, hey, I gotta somehow fend off criticism and deflect and try to have someone else responsible for my mistakes, both in conception and in execution. And I think she was flailing there, was trying to put it on Tom's feet.
There was something that bothered me about the Roots menu. And I feel like, so one of my issues with Gabri is he does a lot of cool stuff. I tend to like sauce less. I'm
very saucy guy. Very saucy.
Yeah, he's a saucy guy. And by the way, Mexican cuisine is very saucy. And but I kind of bow at the altar of Suzanne Goyen and California cooking and give me a well seasoned, lovely piece of protein. You don't need to do too much veg for it. I mean, there's a reason I kind of like Tom's cuisine, at least the looks of it. And that didn't seem like, and Tom Colicchio made note of it, right? Primi dish is the seafood tortellini with this beurre blanc with vermouth and lemon. And then you followed up with what is kind of, at least nominally, the main dish. A sea bream quatape, which is, in my understanding, is kind of a soup. It's a stew. And I'm sorry, I don't find it appetizing to see a beautifully executed piece of sea bream slathered. Like
in a black sauce. Like
right. By the way, I'm all for moles. I think there is a time and a place for chicken mole. But it's just like, it looked like, it's just sauce on soft. And it just wasn't, it didn't look like a main for a tasting menu. It looked like, frankly, its own kind of, if you weren't doing a pasta, you would maybe do an interesting soup there. It actually looked like the second of the four dishes in a tasting menu item that would then be followed by a bold protein, a medallion of lamb on a plate, or a game bird, or whatever fancy protein or fish you want, or a piece of fish that's actually not buried under, a spackle of sauce. By the way, it sounded like the sauce was great. It's tonka bean and caramelized onions. Do you know that tonka beans were illegal in the U.S. For quite a while?
Why? What are they, like psychedelics or something?
I think they have some enzyme in them that causes liver. I don't know. But apparently tonka beans were having a moment about 15 years ago in Europe, but it looked delicious. But again, it did kind of look like slop on slop on slop. Like, I don't love overly sauced. I will order a stew. I will order a sauce. I will order a mole. I love dips in Middle Eastern cuisine. But it's sort of like, I want a nice piece of fish on a plate, and I don't need it drowned in anything. Yeah. Like, I'm not eating sauce as my main. Now, if you want to put it as your kind of app or as a preliminary course, that's different. If you're going to give me kind of essentially a fish stew, that's fine.
Almost like they should have flipped Nicole and Gabri's dish. Almost like if Gabri's was like before Nicole, it might make more sense. And I think they spoke a little bit to that. It was the idea of like, this does not work as a follow-up to pasta. It doesn't work. And Kevin, I'm with you. That whole menu was not exciting at all. The best thing they did was the sorbet. I mean, the sorbet.
No, I think the leek confit and chestnut black garlic puree looked absolutely delicious.
Yeah, you're right. But in terms of like the conceptual, the menu itself, I think the Tom's dish was the star of the menu. But the only thing that like was surprising or interesting was adding an amuse-bouche or a palate cleanser right before the main. But everything there just seemed kind of no crunch, no texture. Just all of the menu just seemed kind of bland and sauce, like just blah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing Nicole could have done is you could have flipped the two of them. Gabri goes second with his sort of fish stew, which is essentially the second course. Have Nicole do a very, feature the seafood, feature the lobster. I don't know if they had the money to do that. Feature the shrimp, feature some kind of fish. And, those entrees you get that have 3 little tortellinis or 1 little tortellini or 2 little tortellinis, and actually done in terms of volume, half of the pasta you did. In fact, do the half that you had time to recreate, but actually feature the protein rather than just have it purely stuffed. I mean, I'm just grasping at straws. I mean, Nicole knows best, but I don't know that she did. And again, it wasn't the service scheme that did her in. What did her in was like she had it sounded like a pretty gummy pasta. That wasn't all that interesting and creative. It was just seafood tortellini, right? There was no wow factor on their menu.
There wasn't. And, we'll get to United Kitchen here in a second. There's 2 things I want to ask you about that we haven't addressed, but are very central to this episode. One is because they're not actually eating in the restaurant with the other patrons for whatever reason. Maybe this is a COVID thing. I don't know. But they did hire a stringer here. They got a local food critic who was going to sit in the Jimmy from I'm not going to pronounce this right, Famurera, who was a journalist who was able to be the food critic and the appraiser of the pacing and the ambiance and how the rest of the folks were eating and their enjoyment of it. He was exceedingly positive. Everything he said was amazing, psychedelic, beautiful. Every dish was beautiful, delicious. I would have liked a little bit more vinegar in my food critic. I don't know about you, but someone was a little bit more discerning. Maybe everything was seamless and everything was perfect, but it did seem like this guy, however, he might be the most technically intellectual, just an amazing writer. But I was taken aback by how everything was just amazing, and it just seemed like they had to kind of I don't know, fudge this episode together. Oh, we're not going to be in the restaurant. How are we going to grade how well they're doing on everything? Well, let's bring in and promote this guest judge. And that one, I was wondering your take on Jimmy's not performance, but his role in this episode, and whether you liked that element or whether you were okay, not super excited about it.
Well, I do like the element in the sense that I think one of the hacks in previous Restaurant Wars is that the contestants know that really when it comes to actual food, that as long as that VIP table gets our best plates, we'll be okay. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really matter if, to the extent that you have, you cut into that saddle and they're better, and some of the protein is better executed than others. You give the dry pieces to the diners as long as you save the best for the judges. You're good. So it closed a loophole.
Yes.
That chefs, I think, have been exploiting in Restaurant Wars. So I like it from that standpoint. Jimmy was very affable, but I'm with you. It's like, he didn't have an unkind thing to say. And I one of the things I have enjoyed this season is they've had more frank, they've had far more frank judges than they have in the past. And even Gagan Anand is exuberant when he loves something. He loves something, but he's not afraid to be critical. And, and Jimmy just was not critical, right? Like to the extent that Nicole's pasta fell short, we certainly didn't learn it from him. To the extent that, the tiramisu lacked a punch, we didn't learn that from him. To the extent that the pastry wasn't really a Cornish pasty, we didn't learn it from him.
Yeah, and he's in a tough spot there because he has to fill a lot of roles there. It's not just the food critic, but the appraisal of how everything moved, how everything felt, the service. We didn't get, and to his credit, we didn't get kind of these disasters, these crises in the kitchen where there's patrons just sitting there waiting for their food and wondering where the hell is my main dish, or standing at the front of the house in the lobby and waiting like, well, when are we going to be seated? We didn't have that element, and so it didn't really. He didn't have too much to harp on, but that's one thing. The other thing I want to ask you about is the glass wall kind of focus groupy interrogation room where they're watching the kitchen. I thought was really cool. I thought it was a nice little twist that they were able to watch them front row seat to the kitchen and basically not only eat their food, but see how it's being created. And we have elements of this during the pandemic where they were doing the chef's table and the 3-course menu where they are watching the kitchen front row seat. I almost wanted one of those like one-way mirrors almost, like that the chefs didn't know that they were sitting right there. That would have been really cool. Obviously, this is not their restaurant. It's Claire's restaurant, and they'd have to redo that. But it would have been fun to have kind of like that reveal at the end, which is like, oh yeah, that wall that you thought was just a black wall, that was actually a one-way glass, and we could see everything that was happening. That would have been really cool. But what did you think about that element of the episode?
I mean, it was cool, but again, they didn't create the conditions what they saw were 4 chefs with plenty of space.
Loving the kitchen, just absolutely
loving the kitchen and executing their food. Like, there wasn't, like, it would have been more fun had what they've been observing been, chaos and contention.
Yelling at the managers like, hey,
it's not so much the setup. I agree with you. It was very cool. What lacked drama was what they were actually, it matters what they're observing. The observation is cool, but they weren't really observing much of anything.
Right.
And again, the only, as we move over to Team UK, I mean, there was only one dramatic moment where, Tom was able to discern from the fishbowl that, wait, he's putting jus on that plate. He didn't put jus on my plate. And we'll talk about that because it was sort of an odd week in the sense that Ali was part of the winning team, as he generally is. But he actually apparently turned out one of the only really unsuccessful dishes of the night. UK, Buddha, as you said, kind of took the lead, and not only did he take the lead, but he was going to do the first course and then the dessert.
Yeah,
no one really wanted to do dessert. The deconstructed English breakfast, classic Buddha, a coddled egg. He did a blood sausage, truffle toast, and that tomato tea, which just bravo. That's fantastic.
All of it was just outrageous that he was not only able to pull one of those dishes out of his ass and then produce it, but then he had an additional one, like the fact that he was able to execute and lead. And everyone, it seemed like an absolutely blissful execution. Like like Ali, yes, he had a little bit of issues with his dish, but it was like a walk in the park, that team. And so Buddha, if I could give him 20 points this episode, I would have in our system, because that's how well he executed. And I do think that sometimes he can be a little authoritative on his leadership, but when you have Sarah and Ali and Amar on your team, there was very little, if any, of that where Buddha's being over controlling in the kitchen. So I thought his full English breakfast, strawberries and cream, those two dishes, a high risk, high reward. He just nailed it.
Yeah, it was Buddha at his best. Was able to do refined cooking while paying tribute to traditional items. I mean, there's nothing more basic than strawberry and cream, but when you adorn it with a basil ice cream and the milk gel and the inverted meringue, it works beautifully. Amar took a real interesting choice. I mean, you don't see a lot of hot sauces on crudos. But hey, he does, essentially a French curry butter sauce. Vanavan and has pickled vegetables to give it the acid it needs. He didn't destroy the scallop in the process. And it's interesting. I don't know. I guess the curry is sort of the nod to UK. It was the only of the dishes that wasn't kind of a traditional, unless I'm wrong, unless there's some scallop crudo dish in UK culinary tradition. I don't know. But God, it looked good. I mean, there's nothing I love more than a raw scallop, and there's very little I love more than a butter curry sauce or a curry butter.
A risky move, right? Like the idea of doing the cold scallop tartare smothered in a warm sauce. They harped on that, and I'm very.
See, I would go the other way, Tom. I think Amar, for being kind of insouciant and happy-go-lucky, I think he knew exactly what he was doing. You're not going to go home for a crudo. You're not going to go home for a crudo. You're not. You're not going to screw that up. You will not have the worst of 8 dishes. Especially since some other genius decided to do tortellini, right? Like you're not going home for that. I think Amar played this brilliantly.
And you're right. And it wasn't anyone else that we saw that was making the comment to Nicole. It was Amar making that comment to Nicole. And then he goes and does a crudo. So think about that. Yeah. Is he knew that the tortellini was going to be, her death knell on the show. And then with Amar, just basically doing a scallop crudo tartare with I don't know, Kevin, like I don't go shopping for seafood quite that often, but when you get to have the shell with the scallop together, it's just a beautiful kind of.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
What a presentation.
But I think Amar very well knew I'm going to have somewhere between the third and sixth best dish today. There's a reason that certain contestants in the past of Top Chef kind of sneer at chefs that do a lot of crudos. There's a very high floor.
Yes.
If you have a good piece of fish, there just is. Did anyone ever go home for crudo? I've never seen it. Unless they don't take the veins out of the damn shrimp, right? Like, and so I think.
Well, Luciana did, but it was only, I can't remember exactly the other dishes. It was I think they all, but
it was only 3 dishes. I'm saying like it's hard in a competition of 8.
Yes.
And by the way, just a lovely silky, butter curry sauce is going to be delicious, and it's going to be easy to prepare in 5 hours. You're just not going to screw that up. Like I saw Amar, and by the way, I don't say this with any disrespect. Like I think that's the way to play a challenge like this, is do something beautiful that people love. You're not there's going to be a slight wow factor, only in the sense that it's such an unconventional choice to do a hot sauce with a cold piece of seafood, but it worked. But even Tom said, Colicchio, you pulled it off, which is not a non-endorsement, but it is not exactly. I think Lamar had the third or fourth or fifth or sixth best dish today. Yeah, probably. Now, who did? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Sarah. I mean, it's not that she had to deal with, like, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, but like Cullen skink with
it's chowder,
with a cod with mousse and potato, smoked onion, like. Yeah. That is, to me, not a very exciting thing that I would have picked out on a menu, but the judges loved it. And
it's chowder.
It's a chowder with, I mean, it didn't even seem all that, like when she plated it, it felt very 90s to me. It didn't feel like a modern dish, and yet everyone loved it. Tasted delicious. Claire was just over the moon about that dish. And I don't know. She has this quality on the show where she takes these humble things, ingredients and dishes, and wows their faces off. It reminds me of she did the pork rib, the fried pork rib last week, and it might have been Anand's favorite dish. Like he's saying you could build a fast food chain based off of this dish, and just it might not have won. That might not have won because of what Buddha had on this Restaurant Wars episode, but it was pretty damn close in terms of like one dish. Who had the best dish if you did the pecking order? Sarah's dish seemed to be across the board just beloved. Yeah,
I had it. I mean, I want to do the rankings after we finish with the last dish, which is Ali's, but I'd love to get your sort of perception of how they rank the dishes. Ali was not terribly successful. He did a Cornish pasty, which, is a pastry. I don't know why they call it pasty, with kind of a side of a medallion of lamb, maybe you would call it. So, but the pasty was actually a phyllo dough. It didn't really imitate. And it's very interesting, even when you are deconstructing and reconstructing traditional dishes. You ever notice that British chefs are very quick to say, this isn't an actual pastry, this isn't an actual shepherd's pie. Like they are oddly faithful to these just ridiculously bready English dishes. Like never has a culinary tradition just been so blah, and yet the people who subscribe to it so committed to its blahness, right? British food is confusing.
I know
me.
it's
just whatever.
I love this season, how all of it is coming out. All of this it's pent up. You're purging all of your British food takes, and I love it because I did not get to eat British food when I was over there studying as much as I would have liked on the budget that I was on, and just when you're in college, you're not exactly the most culinary focused, trying to go through. So I was hoping you'd breathe some of that into this Pack Your Knife season. And Kevin, I was a little worried for Ali on the second thing, which is we always know duos do not work on Top Chef.
Duos do not work.
It is one of the truisms of this show.
But he had to do it because that was the main, and you can't give people a pastry for the main, right? Like you can't.
So then go in a different direction.
But it was weird because he has this medallion of lamb, and one of the complaints was that it was too light on a jus. It was a non-practicing Jew, Tom. It was like and it was hidden underneath. And Tom Colicchio has to go back into the kitchen to kind of examine what the hell's going on. Apparently, he didn't even realize the Jew was on his plate, but it was like in the middle. But yeah, it was blah. It was the second week in a row someone said, I'm going to feature lamb nakedly, and the judges were very unimpressed.
Yeah, Ali, I don't know why he put the jus on top for the other dishes, but for the judges' table, the medallion was on top of the jus. If it just didn't make much sense on that level. And I feel for him, man. If I was Ali, I'd be shitting bricks. If I saw Tom coming in there, walk in and see him, and then not with a word out of his mouth, just turn around and go the other way and leave, I would have been terrified. So Ali, props to him for keeping his composure. I might have just turned into a puddle at that point. So it felt like a duo. There were two different plates. I get it. As a main, you can't really serve it on the same plate because it's probably a different heat and just, I don't know. It felt like a risk. Of all the 4 dishes in that kitchen, I guess 5, that one to me was clearly the one that was going to be, if the other team was just amazing across the board, I think Ali's going home.
Yeah, Ali's going home. And I had it. So here's how I had it. I had the top 2 dishes I thought were Tom and Sarah. Like clearly there was nothing. There was sort of no unkind things said about them. I then had sort of in third, Buddha's sort of 3A and 3B were kind of either Buddha and Amar were the next tier, right? Where there wasn't, I mean, apparently like the blood sausage was not perfectly to Smith's liking, but she was okay with it. She loved the overall dish. So I had like Buddha and and Amar in kind of the next phase. Victoire sort of alone in 5th. And then I had as the bottom dishes, the sea bream, the tortellini, and Ali. And obviously we would put Nicole at the very bottom. And then 6th and 7th, we either Gabri and Ali or Ali and Gabri. That's sort of how I had it.
I like that. I don't have any disagreements there other than Buddha's full English breakfast. The highlights were so high that I think even though the blood sausage was a critique, I thought that probably put him on tier 1,
right?
Just because, I mean, it's hard to come up with like a very inventive full English breakfast and execute it. And also, I mean, I guess I'm giving him a little bit of extra credit, brownie points, for having 2 dishes, and that was 1, and he executed so well. But I think you're right. The chestnut and leek from Tom and Sarah and Buddha, probably the full English breakfast I would probably put on the tier 1. I think Nicole's tortellini, maybe the dish itself, if we're talking independent of the pacing and the fact that she had to, slow down the group because she had to redo the tortellini, maybe the dish itself isn't the worst dish. Maybe I could see that argument. To me, those were the bottom 3 dishes: Gabri, Nicole, and Ali. And I think you can make an argument for either of those. I have no issues with your pecking order there, or your power rankings on the dishes. There wasn't a clear favorite. If we had to do all the dishes on the board and had to pick which one was the favorite, I don't think there was a standout like knockout dish. But considering Buddha, all the responsibilities he picked up as the leader, as doing an additional dish, and having one of the best performing dishes, clearly he was the winner of this episode.
Yeah. Again, a guy with a vision. And the other team just simply didn't have vision.
No.
But again, I do think that this just lacks so many of the fun features of Restaurant Wars we generally see. And because they didn't ask for much other than, hey, come up with a concept for a menu. Not even a restaurant. The restaurant's already there. You didn't have, these are all anybody who goes on Top Chef is on Top Chef because they are incredibly creative with food. And most of them, I imagine even the private chefs who've sort of said, hey, there's a better lifestyle over here, catering or being a personal chef, still in their heart of hearts say, hey, if someone dumped a couple $1 million on your doorstep, what restaurant would you open? They all have that, right?
Yep.
Everyone's got that. This is the equivalent of the writer's the novel that you want to write that you never get around to. And I think we missed some. I loved watching in previous Restaurant Wars sort of the executive chefs tangle with their teammates over vision, collisions of egos, because generally speaking, these are talented people and someone's going to have to compromise on that vision. Sitting there doodling in their book, like, hey, what if we did it this way? Or I've always went like this kind of restaurant. This was, I would encourage, and we say it with love and constructive criticism. I will hope that season 21 Restaurant Wars will return to a more conventional setup, because this just felt like chefs executing 8 dishes. Yeah, there needs to be some relational theme here to each other, but by and large, this was a generic elimination challenge masquerading as Restaurant Wars.
Yeah. And look, I think Nicole, it was sad to see her go. But I want to circle back on Buddha for a second here before we talk about Last Chance Kitchen and all that. But Buddha, the fact that Claire Smith was the judge here, the guest judge, and we were operating in her restaurant, I thought that was a big red flag for me if I was another Chef Teston, is that she might be biased towards Buddha, and therefore this isn't a level playing field. However, Buddha did the smart thing here, which is to assuage any sort of concerns that I'm going to get some favorable result. I'm going to bite off way more than most of y'all can chew. And he was leader and picked up 2 dishes. And so he really went for it on this episode. And I got to tip my cap to him, because that was a very risky move for him to pick up 2 dishes and be the leader in that clubhouse. So I think that was a little bit worrisome for me at the beginning. Of just like, oh wow, she's obviously going to be, very favorable to Buddha, but he didn't take the easy route on this one. Now, Nicole, she and Tom had a little bit of a spat there in this episode. Just going, a little bit of disagreement. And we saw Nicole this season produce some of the best dishes, the highlights of this season. She didn't finish in the bottom 3 at all up until she got eliminated this week. And I'm rooting for her in Last Chance Kitchen, because I do think that this episode, she didn't show the best judgment here to go with the tortellini, but I do think she's one of the 5 best chefs on this show. So I'm rooting for her.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I drafted her relatively high, and I drafted her based on my knowledge of her performance. As she said early in the episode, she had not been on the bottom. She's somebody who's typically turned in at worst, good food, and so this was kind of early for her first clunker of the season. And it's funny about the theme. Like I found. And again, the shows are edited, and I found her a little precious about, and in fact, one thing that might have contributed to her loss is, hey, I thought Roots was a pretty good idea had it been executed correctly. You do have, talk about geographical diversity. Gabri is a Mexican chef who works with a various set of flavors. Tom is an unreconstructed European chef, and really kind of foraging in Central Europe, as Victoria pointed out, for veg. Like, it is a very particular kind of European movement, right? You've got, you've got. Sorry, I'm blanking for a second. You've got Victoire, who is an African chef, and then Nicole, who is North American, but has tapped sort of her Chinese roots, and for her to say, "Hey, I'm finding it too restrictive. I'm going to do an Italian dish." It's like, okay, look, yes, it is restrictive. That's what themes are. It's restrictive. That is, you have to restrict, the chefs to a certain parameter. Like, that's what doing a theme is. It's restrictive. Telling 4 judges you have to do a traditional British dish that you can then put your thing. Oh, it's a little restrictive. I wanted to make, right. I don't know, coq au vin. Like, whatever. Like, it's just like, hey, play along. I thought, I think there were some moments in the episode where I know that you train Italian. That's great. Fake it. That's what you're doing. You're selling a story. You're selling a story. And the story is, we literally have the most fascinating group of chefs here. We have a guy who grew up, working middle class in Germany, who works in sort of those root vegetable areas, right? We have an African refugee who found her way to Italy, right? We have a Mexican chef who does incredible things with that culinary tradition, and we have a Canadian of Chinese descent, who is so versed in so many different things, and whose cooking is an amalgamation of that. Well, I consider Italian. Well, that's not working, man. Like, it's just not working. Like, it doesn't help the root story. And I think had she been less concerned about that and just sort of played along with it, I think it might have been a more successful week for her.
She goes home to Last Chance Kitchen, -5 on your team, but you do get the winner, Buddha. Another win for him. Restaurant Wars champ, the Top Chefologist, wears the crown on Restaurant Wars. Excellent job by him. Not my favorite episode of Top Chef this season. Not my favorite Restaurant Wars, period. And I put an asterisk next to Restaurant Wars for all the reasons we stated before. Still a good episode in terms of just on its merit, but then the whole fact that we lost the real Restaurant Wars this season, it feels like we're going to learn something later about why they didn't do a traditional Restaurant Wars and why they had to kind of fudge this thing together. So I get 5 points for Ali, Sarah, and Amar, and Victoire, and Gabri and Tom with zeros for being on the bottom. But a bounce back week for me, Kevin. Even though I didn't have Buddha on my squad, I had 15 points. You had 5. I'm still ahead. And in the overall point system, Ali has just an edge over Buddha, 44 points in our point system this season. Buddha has 42. And then coming in third is Amar. So Kevin, you're down. Forget what Last Chance Kitchen for a second. You're down down to Buddha, Tom, and Gabri. Obviously your two top picks there, Buddha and Tom on your squad. You're okay with that. How are you feeling in terms of the fantasy roster so far?
Pretty lousy. Yeah. But we will see. I mean, see if Tom can rack up a few tops or wins. Would you like to walk us through Last Chance Kitchen?
Last Chance Kitchen, they did tomato 3 ways, charbel with the concasse, the tomato vinaigrette, the blanched tomato with some ginger and garlic. Dale decides to actually have a protein in his dish with the sea bass, asparagus for some crunch, and the tomato butter sauce. Dale, even though he claims that Saskatchewan tomatoes are the best in the world, and Tom Colicchio actually disagrees and claims, Homer bias, New Jersey tomatoes are the best. I don't know, Kevin. I don't know if you're a connoisseur of tomato or you're a tomatoologist.
I love a tomato.
I love tomatoes, and they give me heartburn, which is so tough because I could eat tomatoes 18 ways every dish of the day. So I would have loved this challenge. Dale actually goes home, and it was great to have him on the show, on the podcast. He goes home because, Charbel, just kind of the elements of 3 ways kind of breathe through a little bit better. And unfortunately, Dale is going home. Charbel moves on into Last Chance Kitchen. Kevin, do you have a favorite tomato, like a regional tomato that you particularly enjoy, or when you go into the market and you see where the tomatoes are from? Is there one that stands above all for you, or is this kind of one of those, hey, I'm biased to wherever I grew up in Saskatchewan, New Jersey, LA, whatever. Who cares as long as I'm eating a tomato?
I'm very partial to the heirloom tomato, the big ugly heirloom tomato. The uglier, the better. And you slice that in, and I just eating it with salt, pepper, basil, and a little drizzle of balsamic. I mean, hey, if you got a cheese, even better. But you don't even need it.
Don't need it.
I do love my heirlooms, and I'm thinking about planting some here in the new backyard. Here in California, which I think has the best tomatoes, but everybody thinks they live where their best tomatoes are.
That's right. Kevin, I'm wondering, we got to see Sylvia here again. She's in the peanut gallery. I love to see her. But man, I would have loved if they just had some sort of, can she just be part of that episode? I want her commentary.
She's fantastic. I think what we both saw in that Last Chance Kitchen is we have found the greatest Last Chance Kitchen peanut gallery member, and it is Sylvia. They should just bring her back for just to sit in the crowd in Last Chance Kitchen from here on out for the rest of the show. Just get her on a plane every time they have a new season and just have Sylvia around. She is a bundle of good vibes. She's hilarious. Ever since kind of Sarah framed it for me that way, I still think her cooking is eccentric, but she is a delight, an absolute delight. And I will be watching Last Chance Kitchen from here on out, not just to determine who will be back in the competition, but actually to enjoy Sylvia's company for at least a few minutes digitally.
That's right. And so we will look to see Charbel versus Nicole in the next episode. They're not going to be re-entered into the competition anytime soon, I don't think. But
usually for 5 or 4, right? Like how they do it. Usually like at 5. So
yeah,
not that far off.
Yeah.
Because we're at 7.
Speaking of off, not my favorite episode, Kevin. Final thought here is just I'm really hoping that there was a reason or an excuse, something to point to. Hey, we had to call an audible on Restaurant Wars this year because this didn't feel like Restaurant Wars, and maybe they'll make up for it later with a different type of Restaurant Wars Z concept. But not my favorite. But hey, they can't bat 1,000 on Top Chef. They were batting pretty much 1,000 this season until this episode, and that's okay. Greg Maddux didn't, what was it? He didn't have like a 78 pitch complete game or something like that. Something ridiculous. I remember watching SportsCenter one morning and they showed every single one of Greg Maddux pitches and it took like 12 seconds because he's the most efficient pitcher and maybe the best fielding pitcher of all time and the best base running pitcher. Mays, our producer, chiming in 77 pitches from Greg Maddux. Just unbelievable. So I'm glad we got some Greg Maddux into this week's episode. Kevin, take us out.
For Tom Haberstroh, this is Kevin Arnovitz, and this is Pack Your Knives.